Hello, I am Heather, and I am here today to just tell you a little bit of my story and to invite you to join me in an incredible opportunity to learn and to grow. So I am a survivor. If you are not familiar with the 13 patterns and systems of abuse, I encourage you to check out my podcast and my blog and get familiar with these patterns and systems that so many people are oppressed by. And so here to say right out of the gate, the abuse is so much more than broken bones and bruises. There's psychological, there's emotional, there's spiritual, there is sexual abuse, there is mental and verbal, and using kids, pets, and property, using social restraints, using even your culture against people. So there are many, many forms of abuse. And I do not share a lot of my story, the specifics of it publicly, but I do stand here to say that I have survived all forms of abuse. So when I go through the list of the 13 patterns and systems, I can check off within each system different things that I've experienced in my life as a child and as an adult. So I am passionate about helping other people first of all, just realize and see that they are under these oppressive systems. And then secondly, to get free and to get out and to find safety and healing. I'm also very, very passionate about putting tools and resources out there for other people who want to help. And so I'm inviting you to join me at the Safer Spaces Summit. Back in 2020, March of that year, as the world was beginning to turn and go on its side into places that we never dreamt possible, I enrolled in something called the Give Her Wings Academy. And as I was sitting and absorbing these lessons week after week, I realized this was not just about me. This was about countless other women that either I know already or that I would come to know who needed to have the truth before them about abuse and also the tools and the resources to get set free and to heal and to rebuild their lives. So I created a Facebook community. It's called Held and Healed, Christian Women Rebuilding After Abuse. And ladies, you are welcome to join us there. And then a year ago, also in March of 2021, I launched a podcast where I began to interview and just show the world and introduce the world to some of my favorite authors, advocates, and speakers in this world. And I call my podcast a resource of resources. I just want to resource people. I love to connect needs and resources like that. It just makes me happy. That's where I find my joy. And so you are invited to join us at the Safer Spaces Summit. This will be live and virtual March 25 and 26 of 2022. But if you hear this later, it will also be a vaulted event. So the same link should be able to get you access to the live event now and then the vaulted event later. And I just want to tell you a little bit about each speaker, and it will be 12 hours of content that you will have access to. So if you can't come for the entire event and sit there and Zoom, if Zooming for 12 hours is just too much, I get it. But we are going to go ahead and record it all in one weekend and have it ready. And then at your leisure, you can go back and listen. So Sarah McDougall is actually going to kick us off with a foundational teaching about the 13 patterns and systems of abuse. She's the one who created this list, and I am very grateful to her for it. I use this list in my group. I use this at retreats. I use this on my podcast and my blog. I really think this is foundational to understanding the problem. We have to name the problem before we can really address the problem. Gretchen Baskerville is going to be with us to talk about life-saving divorces. She's going to be there to dispel a lot of myths and things that we have believed in the faith community about divorce that really have nothing to do with the heart, the character of God. And I am grateful for Gretchen. Her community on Facebook is a growing community of men and women who are pursuing life-saving divorces or have come through life-saving divorces. And I have utmost respect for Gretchen and her wisdom and her boldness. Joy Forrest is the founder, the director of Called to Peace Ministries, and I attended her retreat last year, and I actually get to be a breakout speaker this year. And Joy is going to be addressing trauma. So we're going to talk about how abuse and trauma are linked and then what that does to the physical body. Patrick Weaver is going to be with us, and he is going to specifically talk about addressing abusers. So we don't just want to give you, here's the problem, we have this really big problem. We also want to give you a very practical application of how then to address the situation. So he is a bold voice for the oppressed. He himself is a survivor. And as a man and as a pastor, his voice in this fight is so precious. The women in my group just love his posts and love his boldness and love the clarity with which he speaks and writes. And we are very privileged to have him. Dale and Faith Ingram with Speak the Truth and Love Ministries will be there. And they are going to be specifically targeting the topic of protecting children and others from sexual predators within faith communities. The book that they have written is sharing a lot of faith story from her childhood. And they just do an incredible job, very pastoral and very much shepherds. And I'm really grateful. I'm grateful for these people. All just very humble, just kind people. Cindy Burrell will be helping us to understand kind of the counseling, kind of the do's and the don'ts, and the things that biblical counseling through the years has done a lot of harm. There's a lot of people that have been hurt very deeply because it has not taken the approach of the brain and the body. And a lot of times biblical counseling is, I know that it can be done well. I know that it can be, but in my situations and in a lot of the women that I walk with, through their stories, a lot of their situations, it was very, very destructive. And for me, it was almost like, it almost did me in. So when we're just throwing and beating people up with Bible verses and saying pray more when they're coming to us with all this trauma, that is not helpful. And it's actually re-victimizing and re-traumatizing. So she's going to help us just unpack that. Has written a book that is like one of my top resources to give to spiritual leaders because she really understands the damages that have been done and gives us a path forward. Rebecca Davis, along the same lines, Rebecca Davis is the author of a series of books about untwisting scriptures. And she is a friend and she's just dear to me. And when I am really wrestling with, okay, I read this book, I read this verse, and I just don't really understand because this verse was used to just really hurt me in the past, and I don't think that's the heart and the character of God. She goes to the original culture and context and language and the heart, the character of God. And so she has an incredible ministry to survivors, just helping to untwist those things that have been used to hurt us. Neil Shorey is a pastor, and he and his wife are friends of mine, and I am so grateful again for another shepherd. I know a lot of pastors. I do not know a lot of shepherds. And so I'm grateful that on this list there are several, and they really tend to and care for their sheep. And he's going to be talking about safety. He was involved in a nationally known case of a couple that attended his church, and the husband murdered his previous wife, and then the next wife that Neil personally knew disappeared. And Neil just really is passionate about helping pastors become more aware of trauma and domestic violence and know better and do better, because there's certain things he just wishes he had known all those years ago. And sweet Clara Hinton, she and her son Jimmy have a podcast that I listen to every single week, the Speak Out on Sex Abuse podcast. I encourage you to go check that out. You can just go to jimmyhinton.org and his podcast will pop right up. They do an incredible ministry of teaching the church about protecting children from predators, and their story is just heartbreaking. They themselves have been through the fire. They've come out on the other side, and Clara is going to be talking to pastors' wives. As the ex-wife of a pastor and a pedophile, she has a lot of life experience, and she's just going to be speaking to women who may be in a similar position. They may just be hurting, and because of the position of their husband in the church or in the community, they're just not allowed to talk about it. And I'm just grateful for her voice in this. So you are invited to the Safer Spaces Summit. The link is here in this in the notes here. And if you have questions, I do have some group discounts if you're able to all be together and watch it together. Let me know and I'll get you a discount link. But otherwise, just grab your seat and register. Space is limited. And you will then have vaulted access. So maybe you can't attend every single event live, but you will have the vault afterwards so that you can watch it at your leisure and rewatch it. And even as we go through each session, we're going to also be giving you more resources. I'm going to ask each contributor to give like some of their favorite resources. And at the very end, I'm going to sit here with a pile of books this tall and share with you some of my absolute favorite books on these topics. So please join us. We can no longer say that this is not something that we're aware of. These problems and this reality of abuse is in our face every single day. So much corruption and evil is coming to the surface, and we can no longer stick our heads in the sand. As one person got bold enough to come forward and share their story, another person. So you almost can't even go online anymore every single day without seeing a story of a church or a Christian school or a ministry or just a Christian celebrity, which, by the way, should not be a thing. There should not be Christian celebrities. Jesus is the one we worship. Jesus is the one we adore. So this whole culture that we have set up for Christian celebrities is toxic, and it needs to fall. And we need to believe survivors. We need to resource them. We need to help them heal. So this will give you wonderful tools. Thank you for your time, and please spread the word and invite others to join us. Blessings.